So this is the piggy bank question. So it basically, if you read it, you basically see you have an ellipse here and you have a parabola shape here. And then you have a few various bits that some of you will be able to construct, some of you can guess and continue on. But most of it is fairly doable. So I'm going to start with the ellipse because it probably has the one little bit that's a little bit tricky in it, or one of the main bits that's a little bit tricky. If you look at it here, you can see you have your minor circle of radius 55, but you're stuck with your major circle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out that, and for anyone that's doing ordinary level, they can use that radius. But for those who are doing higher level, they may be able to see how we did it. So we know point B. Okay, we know it's up 40, we know it's out 60. So we'll mark that in, and we'll see how to go from that. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to mark roughly the center of my page. So it looks to be 230 there, probably even 240. So it'll come in about 120. Okay, and I'd say, yeah, that should be good because his snout is 110. Okay, so we'll come in 120. So just be careful that you don't come in much further than that, because otherwise you're going to struggle with getting the snout in. So we'll draw that, and then what height do I have here? 230, 240, we'll come down about 120 as well. Okay. So we'll draw a cross hairs there across the page. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my compass and I'm going to draw my what is it, radius 55. Okay, and then I'm going to mark the point B. So I'm just going to mark, put the 0 mark there and mark 55 millimeters away. So that's my minor circle. Okay, now if you went into the day of the exam, you didn't spot the point B was given, or you're not sure, you're saying, well, where's the distance for this? Just guess it, right? Obviously sort of make an educated guess. So if you look at this and this is 110, right? And you look at this and you say, right, well, that's about, it's more than, it's, let's say it's 40 millimeters at 40, about 2/3 of the way across, maybe even a little bit more, 3/4. You could roughly estimate what that will be. So I'd say it's going to be around 80 to 85. Okay, so again, if you guess that and continued on, you'd be fine. So the main thing they want to see is, can you do an ellipse? So don't get bogged down and not being able to find one distance and then leaving it at that. So we're going to look anyways at what's the exact right way to do it. So we have point B here, which is up 40. So we come up 40. We draw a light line across, and then it's across 60. Put up 60 mark. We mark that, and that's point B. What we know there basically is our ellipse is going to go through that. So you have to think about how an ellipse is constructed. So usually what happens is, if you were to locate a point, if you were to sketch out, I'll just try to do a very rough sketch here. But you draw two circles, okay? I'm sort of limited on space. You would have done your crosshairs and you would have came out with your pizza slices. I'm just going to draw one pizza slice there. What you would have done would have been you would have came down and went across to find the point for the ellipse. So I know that's very, very small, but if you sketch that out yourself, that should give you some idea. So that would be point B. So we need to do the same thing. We need to draw a line across in this orange and draw a line up. Okay? And wherever that hit the small circle, that would have went back through the center point. Okay? And that would have been your pizza slice. So what have I found now? There's my major axis. So I'll do it with this light green. So that's how we do it. Okay? And there's about 4 different methods you need to know in terms of what happens. So what happens if you're given a focal point and a major or minor axis? What happens if you're given a point on the circle? There's about two other ones, I think. Right? And really you should sort of learn them off. I have a sheet that we learn them off when we go back to class. But you should also be able to just sit down and draw a little diagram and just sort of figure them out. So that gives us point B. So after that, once I have my major circle drawn, I would do it exactly the same as I normally would. Okay, so let's see, have I my orange? I'll draw 60 degrees. I'll go 30 degrees. I suppose one other thing you could have done is, technically, if you knew point B, you could have marked it equal distance on each side. You could have marked point B on this side, this side, this side, and that would have given you a good idea as to where to sketch it in if you had to guess it. Alright, but I'm going to do my pizza slices. I'm going to ignore point B for the minute. I'm just going to do the process that I would normally do. I know I have an extra line there, but other than that, I'm going to ignore it. So the other thing that I should do before I sketch, because it's something that people always get confused, is just mark where you start at, where you start and end are. So there's point A, there's point C, C is on the smaller circle, there's point D, and there's point E. Okay, so at least that way I know exactly where I'm starting and finishing. Often people forget to put in the start and finish point, and then they struggle, they accidentally join it to the wrong point. Okay, so I now have the main ellipse shape for the pig constructed. And again, when you're drawing that, you draw it sort of lightish because there's some bits that are going to be cut off. Okay, and then what I do is, again, if it's this question, the next main thing they want to know is, can you do a parabola? So this is our parabola shape. So it's 22 millimeters higher than this point here, E. So let's see what colour, maybe this blue, or maybe a lighter blue, this one here. So we'll go 22 millimeters above, so there we go. And we'll go half 54 is 27. We'll go 27 to the left, and 27 to the right. And then how far down is it? It's down 20 millimeters. Okay. So I'm going to construct this little blue rectangle here into which to fit my parabola. Now, what they did here was they gave you two unusual sizes, right? So they gave you 42 and they gave you 54.5, that is 27, so that you had to use the divisional line method in order to split these. Now, I'm not going to do that for today, and the reason is because some people are doing ordinary level, and for them they're going to struggle with this. So what we're going to do is we'll just use the normal method. If you want to use the divisional line method, you can. So what I normally do is, this is 27. So 27 divided by 5, you can do it in your calculator, it's 5.4. So basically 5.5. So what you have to do is go 5.5 and 11, and another 5.5 is 16.5. Another 11 is for 22. So that's roughly, so again it should look like 4 even splits. And this here is 44. 44 divided by 5 is 8.8. So nearly 9. We'll go 9, 18, and this time we'll go back one, so we'll go 26. Now you could add these up on your calculator. 35. Okay, so they should look like equal splits. Again, the main thing the examiner is looking for there is, do they look like even splits? Okay, so the division line method is what we should use. But for those of you that are looking at this video and don't know what the division line method is, just estimate it out. Okay, so again 5.5 roughly here. 11. That's 16.5 and 22. That'd be fairly accurate. Okay, now I'm just a bit wary that I have this red mark here, so I just might use a different color, maybe a purple. Okay, I want that it's seeable, but at the same time that it's not so heavy. So my vertex is M, so I'm going to mark M. So what happens here is, am I a lighter purple? Yeah. Okay, so what happens here is basically these will go up at an angle to your vertex point. So the same way as we've been constructing parabolas, I'm going to bring them up, and then these ones will come up to meet it. Okay, and typically you'll do the same construction on the other side. As I said before, you could also use a mirror method, or an axial symmetry if you want to call it that, to solve it either. But this is typically the quickest method. Okay, so we mark our various points, and I'm just going to use a black to heavy this in because this is heavy. Okay. And then technically this here would be heavy. And I could shade that in. I'm just not going to shade it in at the minute just for the sake of being able to see it. So what I have now is I have my gap between my legs. I have my ellipse, and in that case I have the main bit of the question that's been asked to be done. So I can show that I can do a parabola, I can show that I can do an ellipse. So what else do I need to do? Well, I want to put in this snout here. I want to put in his ear, I want to put in his tail. All of these have different technicalities in terms of how you're going to do them, but we're going to start off with it one bit at a time. So we start off with his legs, okay, and then at least we sort of start maybe from the bottom and work up. So we know that his legs are basically 20 across. So let's see, I'll draw it lightly first, and then I'll heavy it in. So it's 20 across and 20 across. What we know then basically is the curve for it is basically another 55 straight across. So I'll draw a light line straight across, a light line straight across, and we'll measure 55, and we'll put a little crosshairs there, and we'll put a little crosshairs there. So and now we'll heavy that up to where it hits the ellipse. Okay. So basically I'm setting it to 55, we're setting it to where this will hit the ellipse there. Okay. And we do the same here. Okay, so now I have the legs. So technically I suppose now I could heavy in most of this. The only bit that I can't heavy in is really the ear. But we'll do the tail maybe next. Okay, so the tail is radius 14 when I have my compass here. And we know that's straight up from point B, and we know it goes round, it's a semicircle. So what I'm doing here is I'm just making sure that my point and my sharp point and my marker head are basically roughly the same height for drawing slightly smaller circles. So it's radius 14. So we measure up 14. And we'll draw our tail. That's a full semicircle. Okay, so make sure you've extended up that line that you know where to stop. So that's that. So we'll start onto the eye. So we know that if we come up level with this, we have this point here, and we know that it's up 40. Okay, so you can see that they've given us. So that's basically the corner of the ear. And we know that if we join that back down to this, wherever that goes through the yellow circle is where the eye is. So basically what I did is I came up 40 there. It was level with the parabola part of the foot point N. And that gives us this corner here, which we'll use in a second, but we'll get the eye done first. So I brought that down. Wherever that hit the circle, that gave me the radius, or the point, center point for the eye. So I'm going to set my compass to it. Now again, if you have a circle template, it would be easier to use a circle template at this stage. But because some of you don't, I'm going to show you how to do it, draw with a compass. So again, it's difficult to draw such a small circle. The key bit is to try to get the two of them level if your compass is. So if you have a compass like this, make sure that when you put it together, the two of them are level. If your lead is sticking out very far or pushed in too high, it'll be very, very difficult. So when you push it back in, make sure that they're very close to level. Okay, so we have the eye. Now we're going to draw the ear. So we know that if we set the compass to 24, we can draw the ear. Now we need to, again, you just need to look at where the angles are coming from. This angle here for this part of the ear is by joining the point that we found, which is my red point, back to point E, which is at the base of the ellipse. Okay, so I don't know if that yellow is coming out. Maybe use a darker orange. There, let's see. It's just hard to find colours. We use so many different colours to stand it out. That sort of greeny colour is one part here. And if I join this back to the yellow edge of the circle, that gives me that point. So what I'll do now is I'll set my compass to 24. And then I can have it connect the lines. So okay, so now he's coming together except for a snout. So I also can heavy in this. Don't heavy in inside the air, but the rest of it is coming around. So they've drawn it in such a way that this is solid. Now they seem to stop a bit past there, which we'll have a look at in 1 second. And that goes down as far as there. Okay, so a little bit of shading now would improve the look of it. And what I want to do is I want to draw the snout. So we have a point P here for the snout. So we know that if we come across 110, and we draw a line, and we come up 20, and down 20, we have the front of the snout. Okay, now there is a way of using the focal points in order to locate exactly the tangent to this. But for today's lesson, we're just going to draw it that it looks tangential. So we're going to twist this around until it looks like it touches the ellipse at just one point. Okay, so that looks to be there. And the same on this side. We'll twist it around so that it looks like it touches the ellipse at just one point. Okay, now I think my markers aren't helping, but overall it's pretty much fine. And then we'll come back 10 mil for the edge of the snout. And then a light bit of shading would finish it off. Okay, so there's a few little bits there we haven't covered fully in detail. So one is how to get this tangent, and the other bit really is how to split this line, which is the division line method. Haven't been covered in this video, but we should be able to finish it off as is here. And if we're shading it in, make sure that you use a light color, so light pinks, blues maybe, or reds or oranges, stuff that won't be too dark, so that the examiner, because quite a bit of construction in that, so the examiner can see it.